So my name is Pablo de Soto. I'm an architect. For 10 years, I was founder of Arquitectura.net. Now I'm doing my PhD in the University of Rio de Janeiro. With José Pérez de Lama and Sergio Moreno, but mainly José Pérez de Lama, we created a group in the kind of activist group in the School of Architecture, and one of our main activities was making tactical of critical cartographies. No, so in that moment is where the thing got serious, no? Because my colleague José Pérez de Lama, he was very much into the thought of Deleuze, Guattari, and those philosophers in Mille Plateau. They developed this of rhizome. They really target on the issue of cartography as a kind of knowledge, critical knowledge, but also kind of a political tool for social movements and for the activists. No, so our practice of mapping as Arquitectura was to create maps that could be used in a political level. No, firstly, let's say in a local level, let's talk about the scale of metropolis, and then the second is the scale of, let's say, a more geopolitical approach. No, so so if you were living as us in the late 90s in southern Spain, of course, for example, one object of the mapping was the metropolis where we were living, where it was already obvious at that time the effects of globalization and the way the urban was being making, you know, through gentrification process, how they were going, like several gentrification projects at that time in the town. So one of our main first, probably the first project that we did was a critical cartography of Sevilla. It was done in a kind of event that was happening there. We have to think that it was 2002, and it was like one of this period that was called the anti-globalization movement. So there were several events going on every year in Europe about meetings of let's say European organization, no, like European Union. We used that opportunity to make let's say a critical map of the metropolis that we were living, of Sevilla, no. So we call it this map Sevilla Global, and the hypothesis was let's make a map of the city through these lenses of what is the impact of globalization in the city, and where is going on like some kind of process of accumulation and dispossession. And we did this map for this event because many people from abroad were going to come in the cities, and the idea was that this map was kind of map for us to understand the metropolis, and for the visitors to understand the metropolis through a criteria that is not in other maps. No, when you see about the city, you can have the tourist map, which is actually like kind of a layer of some kind of hotspots of historic interest, and that's it. But we wanted to make like kind of analyze of the whole really the economy was working, and then in the bigger scale of geopolitics, Sevilla is like 200 kilometers away from the Strait of Gibraltar, and the Strait of Gibraltar is as you know a kind of interesting, very hot spot because it's the point where several systems collapse, no, like the European Union and North Africa, the North and the South, the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean. So it's kind of disputed and spot, and of course there are a lot of tensions, no, a lot of conflicts going on there. So we wanted to map like the whole like migrations. They were what kind of migration movement it was going in that and that movement of population in between the south and the north, and what kind of devices from the north was being designed in terms of the militarization or the installation of several kind of devices to control this migration movement, as for example the surveillance system of the straits. That it was kind of a system of radars and sensors in the coast to track the boat people, no, the refugee people, no? And of course also again through these lenses of globalization and how neoliberal politics have an impact on the geography and the life of the population. It was very clear that this movement of the delocation of the production in Europe, mainly factories and also agriculture, and this investment is moving to Northern Africa, to Morocco, where because of the wages are lower, and so we were watching of this movement of capital from north to south, and this movement of people from south to north, and all those kind of militarization projects going on there. So in terms, unless in terms of technology, like kind of new technologies that were invented to control the border, no? From my perspective and the perspective of my group at that time, Arquitectura, there was the need to do a map where there was a conflict, going on. Of course, like our life is a society and with the nature, and it's very problematic. So there are always like objects of mapping, no? As a historic phenomenon of cartography, no? This were used to conquer the territories, no? And still it is like that, no? Like I think the power of maps is as clear as many people think that maps are the reality, no? So by itself has been a kind of a battlefield for the mind of the people, no? For the subjectivity of the people who's gonna read this map, no? So of course, map has always a political agenda, no? If you have things on a plain text, it's not the same if you map it. No, this effort to map things is another perspective, of course. From mind maps to georeference map, but also it's like, you know, it's like kind of cultural. It's a kind of cultural outcome that it can help some discussions, no? So, for example, when in 2010 we were invited to make a workshop in Athens, and of course we were going to propose kind of cartography to be done. We proposed to work with this idea of the common in this situation, that in this impasse that we are staying now in southern Europe. The commons looks kind of key of a key to decipher what's going on, no, in the metropolis or in the territory in terms of the economy and the politics, no. So I think in a way that the most important question is that you have to map about things that matters, no, and try to use some kind of theoretical tools that could fit in this very complex and sometimes very gray and very difficult to understand reality, you know. The idea was to kind of invent a method. How can we map the urban? So the innovation of this mapping the commons was that we kind of invented a method that is both parametrical and audiovisual, no? So let's use parameters because we're not to add any more plain text. Let's define the commons through parameters, and then, for example, like who are the actors, what is the conflict, and the other thing was because of the contemporary global language is video. Let's produce a video to explain each common. So we did it in Athens, and then we repeated this last November in Istanbul. No? This approach of parameters, wanted to have kind of more scientific definition of the common. We could compare one common to another, and also we can compare the commons of one city to another. No? So the idea was to produce like a metadata sheet of every common, no? Which has every common will have a basic info, no, with the name, the actor, the way, the conflict, but also it will have a kind of extended info about the common, about the location, um, if it's a common, the scale, if it's connected to a community, if this community is open, if the resource is shared, if it produces wealth, if this wealth is benefit, it produces a rent, is direct or indirect, if there's a community network behind, what is the process and the management, um, the kind of rules, the conflict resolution. So with this mapping the commons, we are offering a method for other researchers and other scholars or active to use it as well. No? So we tried it first in Athens, and Istanbul we also work to kind of rehearsal and to so now we are able to say, okay, we tried this and it worked this way and it can be used this way. And so we are like publishing everything right now, and we have an article coming out next month about mapping the commons of Istanbul, and explains everything. Yeah, to keep on like doing some trying methods about the urban commons, no, to repeat mapping the commons probably in some cities in South America or in Asia to compare, no, let's say in the next years, so we could have maybe 10 cities, no, where you. So I think it would be very good if we can do that, no, or if other groups can you use them and share the results and discuss about it. No? So I think it's gonna. This is the one task for the next years. No? And keep on researching about when there is kind of this kind of uprise like the 15th of May and this movement for true democracy. What is the use of maps for this kind of small revolt, no, with such a wide spectrum of people, no, kind of citizenship. No, it's not a social movement; it's a citizen movement. No, there is kind of collective intelligence to be able to map and use that map for solidarity. No, so this connection between mapping, solidarity, and we consider like a global movement all around in many countries around the world for a true democracy. This is the item what I want to research next. No, I'm already doing, but I want to to put this on the paper. No, what is the achievement. No? So from there to this, the other thing that is a kind of like visualization of collective intelligence in the digital networks that is also happening in the 15th of May. With this grouping, there's a group in Barcelona researching about yes, like this the infosphere and the noosphere as a kind of as a collective brain, and how are they organizing like actions on the digital level, and this kind of approach to sociology, like with the idea of networking, but how are they using in a very sophisticated way some tools. My biggest personal reference about the theme of mapping is this group called Bureau d'Etudes from France. They're called Bureau d'Etudes, and they were publishing maps under the name Université Tangente, like the Tangent University. They publish like dozens of maps about how capitalism works, what are the power relations between governments, private companies, agencies, like agreements. So they were mapping, for example, the global governance. They were mapping the biotech industry. They were mapping how the media companies are. They were publishing maps in paper, big scale, big maps with very small detail. It's a very detailed. So the maps were like very complex, no? And they were publishing for free and printed. So you were able to take it on going to some kind of against the border, like no border meeting. No? So I think it was, for me, it was very it captured really my imagination, and say no, it was something very. So I think Bugo de Tours, by large, they were the most influential kind of mappers for me, and I think still they are. I think they invented this kind of method, and I think it's, I mean, it's gonna take decades more. I mean, because basically they were mapping complexity, very detailed, you know. So it was kind of useful tool to understand what's going on, but also they were visualizing complexity. We need maps because there are all these connections with different actors.